Alright guys, so I am back with a new video on using apt like a ninja basically. I'm going to show you guys how to use apt as a package installer, well the package installer in Debian 9 Linux, which is current stable as of this video. So I actually did a previous take on this video like 2 weeks ago and I hated it, so I'm re-recording it now and I'm hoping that it goes better. I modified the microphone a little bit, so hopefully the volume won't sound quite as gained out, and we're going to take it from there. Alright, so anyway, first thing we're going to do is launch a terminal, because this is going to be a 100% terminal video, because it's an advanced video, and that's where we live in advanced videos. So, terminal. There we go. We're just going to blow this up. Double click there, blow it up. Alright, there. Okay, so, first thing we're going to talk about is Apt-Get and Apt Cache. Now, if you're thinking we're going to go and do a big demonstration on aptitude, not the case. Okay, aptitude is not something I'm going to cover in this video, primarily because I don't know how to use aptitude. I don't use it for any reason. I stick strictly to apt. And when I say apt, I mean just apt, not apt-get or apt cache, generally speaking. But I'm going to start with apt-get and apt cache because that's the original way of doing things. And if you're using an older Linux version, an older Debian version that doesn't have just the apt application, then you're going to need to use apt-get and apt cache. So the first thing you need to know about apt-get, the first thing you're going to want to do is become root in order to use apt to install anything. So you can either do a sudo in front of every command like that, or you can do a su tac to become root, or you can do sudo tac I to become root, which is what I'm going to do. This way I don't have to enter sudo in front of every single command, because it's going to drive me crazy to do that. If you don't become root in this way, note the word root here, whatever your terminal is, you may also have this hash symbol here. That also means that you are root, whereas the $sign means you're a normal user. If you're not in a root terminal, you're going to have to issue that sudo command prefix to every single command. So just keep that in mind. If something doesn't work, it's probably because you forgot to stick the sudo in front. So what we're going to do is we're going to do apt get. That is the basic installer. Now this is pretty basic for anybody who's used Debian in the past. They're going to know this. Apt-Get. So the big ones we're going to talk about is simply install, and apt-get also remove. So to install a package, we're just going to say apt-get install, say vim, right? And vim's actually going to be my crash test dummy for this, because I'm going to install and uninstall this like 20 times during this video. So you do that and you get your vim package. Now a note about this, the convention here is that the capital Y means that it's a default option. So if I just press enter, it's going to assume I hit Y. If I want to actually cancel this, I'm going to have to actually press in the N, and then it will cancel it. But you can just hit enter and it will install it. So once that installation is done, we can look at apt-get remove. So apt-get remove is one way to remove packages. There's actually quite a few ways to remove packages, and we're going to cover pretty much all of them. But this is the most common way to remove a package and the most basic way to remove a package. So we can do apt-get remove vim. Now you'll also notice that it's setting up these alternatives here, update alternatives, and what that means, I'll actually show you that in just a second when we reinstall vim, but basically what it means is that vim will replace vi as the default editor, so that you can actually use vim just by typing vi, which is kind of cool if you like vim a lot and want to use the old school vi method of launching it, which is what you should probably use if you're using vim. So anyway, that's apt-get. Now, there are more complex commands for apt-get, but I'm not going to cover them because we're going to use apt instead for most of the video, and apt is going to show you pretty much all of the most complex commands. And I will basically try to remember to tell you if a command is applicable to apt-get or apt cache. But the commands in apt are pretty much the same as they are in apt-get and apt cache, because apt basically is like a culmination of the two. If you want to find out more about any of these commands, feel free to issue a man. So you can do man apt-get, for instance, or man apt cache, and you can learn all about all the different various upgrade, install, and how to do things. So that's one other way of learning about it. You can also do apt-get, and then h or help, which will give you this help thing, which will show you basically a brief description of apt and its most used commands, which you can see all of the fun ones that we're going to be talking about later when we discuss just the apt command. So now that we've talked about apt-get, we're going to talk a bit about apt cache. So apt cache is another program in the apt suite of packages, which basically, if you think about it this way, apt-get is how you download and install a package or remove a package. So if you're actually going to do some action on a package, apt-get is what you want in the old school method of doing it. Apt cache revolves around actually gaining information about a package. Is a package available? What package versions are there available? Which ones are installed? That sort of thing. So the two big ones I'm going to show you are search. So search, CRCH, you can search for packages. So this will show me any package that has any mention of Vim in it anywhere. If it has anything to do with Vim, it's going to be listed. So if you scroll up, you can see it lists out all the Vim packages, which would make sense. And then of course there's policy. So if you do apt cache policy, you can actually see what is installed in the package name. So in this case, you can see because the most recent command I issued with apt-get was to remove them, it is currently not installed. You can see that this is the current candidate, 8.0, and you can see that this is the version table, which will tell you which repository that particular candidate is coming from. In this case, it's coming from stretch main, so it's basically this stable repository. So that is the breakdown on the policy part of it. So just to show you, those commands will also work with apt. So you can do apt install, and then you can do them like that. And you'll see that it will in fact do a very similar action, but it had that pretty little installer bar at the bottom. So the big thing to note about the apt versus apt-get is that apt is not good for scripts. So if you're writing a script, say an Ansible or something, or Puppet, you're probably going to want to use the old school apt-get commands if you're doing like a shell script for it. I know that my previous experience with Ansible was if you use the actual modules for installing, the handler or whatever for installing instead of the shell script, what will happen is it will try to use aptitude, and if aptitude's not there, it may fail. That's just my experience. I don't know if there's a workaround for that, and there may be, but my common workaround is just use the shell module and pass it the argument apt-get. But I'm not an Ansible professional. Like, I use it a little bit here and there, so I'm not 100% sure yet if there's a good workaround for that or not. Any old house, so that is how you install a package. Of course, you can also upgrade packages. So if you do apt update, which will update your apt cache, so you can see here it's looking for possible updates and basically checking to see if anything's available. And you can see that there is in fact one package that can be upgraded, and we are going to specifically not do that, so I can continue to show you things with that. But if I wanted to do it, I would use apt upgrade, and that would upgrade all packages on the system. Now, there's another version of upgrade called dist upgrade that I'll touch on in a second after I show you some other commands here. So now let's look at apt remove. Apt remove. So that is the way to remove Vim. However, that's only going to remove the Vim package itself. What does that mean? Well, it means it's not going to remove any dependencies that come along with the apt or the Vim package. So let's see if we look up here. Did it say we need to remove anything? I don't think it did. So if you remove a package that has dependencies, then on your next run, what you might end up seeing is that there are packages that can be auto-removed or uninstalled because they are orphaned, or they are things that were depended on by something, but that something may be uninstalled. So for instance, if I uninstalled Vim and it had a dependency that, or it had, it was dependent on another package, and that package was installed but had nothing else that depended upon it except for Vim, when you uninstall Vim, that package becomes orphaned in such a way that it's there, but it's not serving any purpose. So it will tell you that in the installer, or in the apt program. It will give you a heads up about that and tell you you can remove those. So there's a couple of ways to do it if you do that. So the first thing to do, which actually, let's do the remove them, and maybe I can even show you what I'm talking about here. Yeah, so you can see here I have this Vim runtime package, right? So this is a package that is required to be there by the Vim package. But I am removing Vim, so now it's no longer required. So if I follow through with this, what's going to end up happening is the next time I do an apt upgrade, or I'm sorry, update, we don't want to do an upgrade, you'll see that it will tell me, or it should tell me, that there are some packages. No, it still says, okay, so let's do an apt upgrade then. It's whenever you do an install operation or any kind of thing like that. Yeah, here you go. So the following packages was automatically installed and is no longer required. Vim runtime. So you can see that that's installed still, but it's no longer required by the system. So it's an orphan package. You don't really need it. So we're going to bail out on this because I don't want to do this upgrade. I just wanted to show you that message. So there's a couple of ways we can handle that. The easiest way to do it is to do apt auto remove, like so. And that will uninstall any packages that needed to be removed. But what if we wanted to do an easier removal method? So let's say we install Vim, apt install Vim, right? Let's go ahead and allow that installation to happen. I told you I was going to remove and install Vim like 20 times in this video. All right, so now we have Vim installed. We can verify that with apt, so we can do apt policy Vim, and you'll see that it is installed. If you remember from Apt Cache, that is a way to check if something is installed. So here you can see the particular version that is installed. That's a good thing. Okay, so now let's say I want to remove this package. So we could do apt remove them, but we don't want to do that because we want to get the dependencies at the same time. So what you can do here is you can actually do auto remove, and that will remove them and any package that is required by them. Now that, unfortunately, is only going to remove the packages, though, the binaries. It's not necessarily going to remove configuration files. What if you wanted to really remove every trace of a program from your system as though it was never installed in the first place? Well, there's a couple of tricks to that. You could either do apt purge, or if you wanted to do it all in one command, you could supplement this command with tac purge, like so. And that will remove the package and its dependency, or the package and the dependency it requires in order to be there, in one go, and it will also purge any configuration files or extraneous stuff that was installed by the package that's not normally removed from a standard removal command. So we can just hit enter there, which will basically be equivalent to saying yes, as we discussed earlier. And now those packages are completely gone, and we have no lingering dependencies on the system. We have a clean system, if you will. So that covers update, upgrade, install, remove, and auto remove, which are all available in the apt-get command. It also covers policy and search, which are also available in the apt-get command. Well, actually, I don't think we did apt search, so I'll show you that apt search also works here. Search, let's see, Vim. So here you can see that yes, in fact, search works. The output's a little bit different, maybe easier to read, I guess, but also less script parsable, I guess. So again, if you're using a script, you might want to use apt cache versus apt. But apt is a more unified sort of way of doing it. One of the complaints that I guess an old boss or manager of mine at one point had was that if you're dealing with a Red Hat system, you only have to worry about Yum, and there's not like 12 different pieces of software to manage packages on the system. But with Debian, there's Apt-Get and Apt Cache, and there's actually a lot more that's out there that I'm going to show you later. But those are the two big ones that most people who use Debian on a day-to-day basis would probably be familiar with. Now, again, there's also Aptitude and other things like that that can completely replace those. But if you use Debian without installing any extra packages and you're just using the basic method of installing stuff for Debian, Apt-Get and Apt Cache used to be the go-to applications. But now Apt is coming along and unifying that. So you can think of Apt as sort of like a drop-in replacement for those two. And in Debian 9, that's even more true because it used to leave out certain, I believe there were certain commands. I can't remember which ones or if this is necessarily even true, but I believe that from Debian 8 to Debian 9, Apt gained a lot more capabilities and commands. So I'll hopefully demonstrate a few of those for you soon here. So the next thing you want to do, or we can talk about, is Apt Clean. So Clean is available in Apt Cache, I think. Is it? Man, Apt Cache. Is it Clean? Nope, it may be Apt-Get. Let's do Apt-Get help. Yes, Clean and Auto Clean are part of Apt-Get. So you'll need to be root in order to do this. That's the other thing about Apt Cache is you don't necessarily need to be root to do Apt Cache commands, whereas Apt-Get commands you pretty much always have to be root. So with Apt, fortunately, we don't have to worry about whether it's Apt Cache or Apt-Get. So Apt, you can do Clean. Now what Clean does is it actually removes information from your system cache, which I need to actually see what my system cache even looks like for the apt. So that is stored in, if you go to cd, change directory, right? And you go to var cache apt and then archives. In archives, you'll see that you have some packages there. Now, you can see that Vim is also there and Vim runtime. That's because I installed them recently. So what the cache does is when you install a new version of a package for the first time, it's going to cache that package in this cache. So if you ever need to reinstall it or whatever, it can pull it from the cache rather than the internet, so it's faster. It can also serve as a good way to get old versions of packages. Now, interestingly, you can clear that cache, which is usually necessary if your system is broken for some reason or you've done something bad or maybe it got dorked up somehow and for some reason you just want to clear the cache. It's usually not necessary and I highly recommend avoiding it, but for the sake of completeness, I'm going to show you how to do it. So the first command is clean. And clean is actually a more severe version of auto clean. So, alright, let's do apt tac h, right? Does it even show clean? Nope, it does not show clean as an available command, but it is totally as a command there. So if we do man apt, okay, and we do clean, oh, is it not in there? Huh, it's not in their man page. That's fine. We'll do man apt get. Weird. Okay, so they don't actually have descriptions for them, I guess. Like, okay, yeah, they do. I don't know why it wasn't taking me to them. Whatever. Anyway, so the commands are clean and auto clean. Now, believe it or not, Clean is the more insane version of the command. So like auto remove and remove, auto remove is the more in-depth version of the command, the more gnarly one that takes off more packages. With clean, it's reversed. So auto clean clears out the local repository of retrieved package files. The difference is that it only removes package files that can no longer be downloaded. So for instance, if a version of a package was installed on your system and then you upgraded that package and then you ran an auto clean, it would drop the previous version of it because it can no longer be downloaded from the repository as long as it was marked as no longer able to be downloaded. For instance, if the version was not removed from the repository, it's still going to be there. So basically, auto clean makes sure that your packages are in check with what's actually in the repository. That is sometimes a good idea to run if you're trying to save storage space, like if vars are really clogged up for some reason. But generally it is unwise to do this because you remove packages from your system that you could have fall back on in the case of a problem. For instance, if you do an upgrade and you realize, hey, that package breaks X functionality, I might want to downgrade now. You may have a harder time doing that because your cache is now removed. Clean, on the other hand, will completely destroy the cache. It will wipe it entirely out and is much harsher. So really, you should only do those if you're really doing some heavy troubleshooting trying to fix an issue. And again, it's almost entirely unnecessary to even issue those commands, and I don't recommend doing it unless you specifically know what you're doing and have to do it. Because it actually removes your ability to fall back on stuff. So that's those. We've also covered policy already and search. So the good news is we're almost done. The next thing I want to cover is how to edit your sources. So let's take a look at that. So there's a couple of ways to do it. First of all, your sources. What are your sources? Sources are your repositories where you're getting your files from. Now you can see here from this command that there's actually an edit sources command, and we are absolutely going to touch on it in a second. And we also need to cover dist upgrade or full upgrade as well. So actually, let's backtrack and do the upgrades first because I think that those make sense more here than anywhere else. So if I do an apt upgrade, right, it's going to upgrade all available packages on the system. What if I do an apt dist upgrade? What is that going to do? It's going to basically do an auto remove plus an upgrade. So what does that mean? Essentially, if a package becomes obsolete through the upgrade, for instance, if it becomes orphaned or unnecessary through the upgrade, then it will remove it. So it's basically like a clean upgrade, essentially. Whereas a normal upgrade would leave those packages intact on your system. So depending on your situation and what you're trying to do, a dist upgrade may be preferable, although there are a lot of people who say, well, you know, a full upgrade or a dist upgrade, which I think those are synonyms for each other, are harsh and one should generally avoid them. I particularly like to run a clean ship, so I like to have a very clean system without a bunch of extraneous packages on there. So I do like dist upgrades every now and then, but generally I'll do a regular upgrade and then follow it by a dist upgrade, so I kind of can make sure things work first. But that's one of those things you got to kind of feel it out. The good news is it's Debian, and you can roll forward, roll back, whatever you want to do. They have a snapshots.debian.org, so you can actually get old mirrors of your stuff and pull down old packages. You're never like completely out of luck with Debian generally, right? There's always a way to get what you want to do done. It's just, do you know how, really? And are you more stubborn than the computer you're working on? So that's something to remember and keep in mind. Anyway, let's move along, because I've talked about those, but I don't actually want to upgrade anything, so I'm not actually going to show those commands in action, but now that you understand what they are, hopefully you'll understand what they're useful for. And let's talk more about editing sources. So the first thing I want to do is show you where your sources are actually located. So if you go to Etsy and then into apt, in here, if we ls that, you'll see that there's a sources.list and a sources.list.d. I believe this signifies like a saved version of the open file, so you can basically safely ignore that. But this sources.list and sources.list.d are the interesting files here. Sources.list is your default list. It basically contains the packages or the repositories that were installed when you installed the system. And then sources.list.d is a directory of additional lists that you can create. And I'll show you how to do that in a minute. Which you can absolutely just do vi here and then sources.list. Of course, you'll need to be root to edit this, and then you can preview your thing. The CD-ROM should probably be commented out unless you are in fact installing packages from the CD-ROM. Otherwise, I would absolutely comment them out. Anyway, so sources.list.d is a directory. In here there should be, oh, I do have backports list in there. Okay, so I don't need to go to the website to get that, but I'm going to do it anyway just to show you how. Okay, so with this, Etsy sources list D, essentially these are like extra repositories that you can add. And I'll go ahead and show you what backports D looks like. So if we go to backports D or backports.list, that's what it is. Normally I'll put a comment at the top of what the repository is, so if I try to like cat them all or whatever, I can see what I have. And then I'll put the URL and basically repository entry for that particular repo. And then from there, all you have to do is do an apt update, and it will read from that file and give you your updates. So, is there a better way to achieve this same result? Well, arguably yes. So what you can do is you can do apt edit sources. Tac sources. And then you'll get the sources list file, and it's all highlighted even though I'm root, which is pretty awesome. But unfortunately, it is using nano, and nano is not what I want. I want vi because I like vi. You can use nano if you want, if you find that easier, whatever you prefer to do. And when you first launch this, you're prompted to pick an editor, which sometimes you may pick the wrong one because it's not installed yet. So for instance, I've uninstalled and reinstalled vi quite a few times, which is probably why it's selecting nano there. We can fix that though with select editor. And now we'll ask which I want to use, which apparently Vim is not there, so I'm going to Control-C that and install Vim. Sudo apt install Vim. I think I'm at a point now where I'm not going to uninstall Vim anymore. Maybe I will, I don't know. Because I think there is one more kind of command that you can use to uninstall stuff the hard way. Okay, so now you can see that I have Vim Basic and Vim Tiny, and then I also have Nano. I believe that Tiny is actually I'm not sure because that was on the list technically. I think that may be equivalent to regular vi. Vim Basic is the one we want though. So we're going to do 2 here, and that'll give us Vim. So now when I do my edit sources, apt edit text sources, right? Now you'll see that I'm in vi, or Vim, which is what I wanted. And I have a colored output, which I normally don't get when I'm root. So that's cool that I get, you know, a better interface to edit with, even though I'm technically root right now. So that covers edit sources and the sources list, but what about actually inputting a source in there? What can we do? How can we edit the other sources, by the way? How can we edit backports, for instance? So if you hit tab a couple of times here, you'll notice that it'll complete the one, backports.list. So here I have backports.list, and I can edit that one. And you can see that I can make adjustments, comment it out, whatever I want. So the easiest thing to do is just comment it out. If you want to disable it, that's normally what I recommend. The other thing you can do is you can just move backports.list to a different file, because it'll only read the ones I think that are .list at the end. So that may be the case, but let's actually just remove it, because I'm actually in that directory. And by the way, that would have auto-completed regardless of if I was in this directory or not with that command. So I just happened to be there because I moved there originally. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to launch Firefox ESR here, and I'm going to show you how to add backports in case you don't know. And then we're going to talk about adding a different repository with apt key in a second here. But ESR's taking a sweet time to come up. This is a VM, so you'll have to excuse the sluggishness. Normally it's much quicker. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to ignore whatever that was, and we're going to go to Debian backports. Oh, this is awful. This is set up with that little search bar. I don't know why that's still a thing. Like, that should go away. As you can see, searching from the normal title bar works fine. Anyway, so what we're going to do is, this is the Debian backports page. If you search for it, just Debian backports, or you can just type in backports.debian.org and you'll get here. From here you can do instructions, and then you want to look for stretch backports. So for stretch, add this line. This is the line we're interested in. So we're just going to take this line here and we're going to copy it, right? And then we're going to switch back over to our terminal. So let's do that. And here we can enter in our edit sources backports.list, which will make the file again. We'll add our comment at the top, backports, and we'll just paste it in. Control-Shift-V, we'll paste that in. And then you can press escape to get back into command mode, and then you can press :WQ to quit, write and quit, respectively. And that, of course, needs to be done with root, so sudo privileges. And then you have that. Now if you do sudo update, you're good. Oh, sorry. Not sudo update. What am I thinking? Apt update. You're good. Sudo apt update if you're not running as root, of course. And then you'll have your backports available. Now, interestingly, you don't need to add a key with backports. Why don't you need to add a key with backports? The answer, it's an official Debian repository, so your key's already there. You don't have to worry about it. However, if you're running non-official repositories, you might want to run that key. So I'm going to show you how to do that. So what we're going to do is we're going to go to here, and we're going to go to Nextcloud, Ubuntu, Nextcloud client, maybe. I think it's Launchpad. This might be it. Yes, so this is the one. We're going to use this. So Nextcloud is like a web server that you can sync files with and stuff. It's pretty amazing. It's awesome. It's not really content for this video though, but for the sake of showing you how to do this, this is a fantastic one to experiment with. So what you're going to do is you're going to click this little drop down here for technical details about this PPA, and we're going to choose an Ubuntu version. Now I happen to know the one that will successfully install is Artful. All the other ones will have a dependency that's either too old or too new in the case of Bionic, and probably will not install. So what you can do is you can grab this repository. Now I want to prefix this with a big warning here. Normally it is a humongously bad idea to install Ubuntu software on a Debian system. You usually cannot do it. Because the repository or the dependencies in Ubuntu are not binary compatible with the dependencies in Debian in all cases. So you'll end up with Debian needing dependencies from Ubuntu, and you'll get a messed up, crazy mess of a system. It's not a good idea generally. I happen to know that this one will behave just fine, so you're safe to do this. But I still don't necessarily recommend it, generally speaking. Basically, if you try this and it tells you to install a whole bunch of dependencies, bail, because it's not a good idea. The other thing you can do, which is probably content for a different video, is you can use this source link. You can get the source, you can download the source, and then you can use pbuilder to recompile the source and make an actual Debian package, effectively creating your own port of that particular software to Debian. And then you can install that software safely in Debian and it will work fine. I've done that countless times with different pieces of software. Anyway, the line we're interested in is this one here, this deb line. Okay, we're just going to copy this line, and then we're going to go back to our sources. So let's go ahead and come back over here, and we're going to click, or we're going to type apt edit sources, and we're just going to give it a file. Let's try Nextcloud dot list, and then in here we can type hash Nextcloud. And then we'll put our repository there. Troubleshoot. There we go. Oops, got a funny character at the beginning there. Okay, we're going to write and quit. That will give us our repository. Now, if we do a sudo, or not sudo, sorry, apt update, again, sudo in the case of if you're not root, you'll notice that we'll get an error, a GPG error, which tells you that there is some sort of cryptographic error going on here. It's a problem. It says specifically we don't have a public key, specifically this public key. It's just not available to us. So how do we resolve such a thing? Well, most of the time when you get a repository like this, if it's done right and done well, you'll have a signing key available. So we can click this signing key link, and then we can click this guy here, and you'll see that that is a key. Now, we could do, you know, make a text file or whatever, but that's stupid. So what we can do instead is right-click on this and do Save Link As. And then we can save that as, what, key.txt. It doesn't really matter. Let's actually put it in our home directory for the sake of ease. I'll just call it nextcloud.key. How about that? Nextcloud.key. All right, and then we're just going to do save. And now we should have that Nextcloud key in our directory, which I'll show you through the Files app here. So if we go down, actually I think I've done it here before as that. Yep, Next key and Nextcloud key. We'll use Nextcloud key. I'm actually going to delete this guy here so it doesn't confuse us. So we use Nextcloud key, and we'll go into our guy here, and we'll do apt key, and we'll do add, and then Nextcloud. Sorry, we are not in our home directory, so we got to specify we want our home directory, which the shortcut for that, by the way, is tilde, which is the key just to the left of your one key if you don't know what tilde is. And then you're going to use the / for the directory structure, and then you'll do Nextcloud. Oh, I'm sorry. So the problem we're having is that the key is not in the root level's home directory for me. It is in my home directory. So if you're using sudo, that command would have worked for you and auto-completed. In my case, it's not going to. I need to actually specify my home directory. You can do that by doing tilde and then your username, which in my case is Joe. So now it should auto-complete if I do Nextcloud key. And then if you press enter, you'll see it will output OK, and that's it. That means your key is in place. So now if I do a sudo apt update, which actually I didn't need the sudo update. I keep wanting to do sudo, but for, you know, because I usually use sudo with that command, but since I was going to be entering it over and over and over again, I haven't been because it'd be a pain. Anyway, now you'll notice that those repositories are fine and they do not generate the error. So that's a very good thing. We're moving in the right direction. Okay. Now, how do we see a key that is there? How do we look at the keys, right? So for that, you want to do apt key and then list. Okay, that's going to show us all the keys on our system, and you'll notice that they're alphabetized. That's why they're in the order they're in. So there are no specific like, you know, oh, these are the newest ones or whatever. It's not like that. They're just alphabetical, and it's going to output them. So if we look at these, you can see we have Jesse and stretch keys, all the official keys for the various repositories, and then up here at the very top you'll see that there is a list of just kind of extra keys, and you'll see that they have this Launchpad PPA for Nextcloud. That would be the key we just added, and this would be its signature. And if we want to manipulate this key, this is what we're going to need. So we're just going to right click on that and do copy. Actually, highlighting it was probably good enough if we wanted to just use our middle mouse button, but you know, just for the sake of ease, we're gonna go ahead and copy it to our clipboard as well. Now, what we can do if we want to remove said key, let's say we're done with that repository, we don't ever want to install that software again, we've decided to go a different direction, you know, however you want to say it, we're moving on. And we're going to remove that key now. So what do? We can do apt key, and then we can do remove. And then you paste in that string. I believe we have to quote it. And then you press enter. And you'll see that it says OK. Now if we look at our list, you'll notice at the top that key should be gone. I may have scrolled up too high. Yes. So this is the new list. Sorry, that list above was just too high. So you'll notice that now it starts with the Debian Jesse, whereas before, if you look at this list, you can see that Debian Jesse archive here has something above it. So these extra keys are kind of added at the top here, and you can see that it's clearly gone. And if I do an apt update now, you'll notice that I will get those GPG errors again, which I did. So we can get rid of that repository because we don't actually want to install anything from it. So we just cycle through. We can do this, and we can just do that, and then do this. So a little bit of that and a little bit of this, and we have a commented out repository, and then we can do apt update, and it will recycle that repository and basically clear out those that repository from our apt list and prevent any errors from occurring. So that covers apt key, apt cache, apt-get, apt, and editing sources.list. What may be left, you might ask? Well, how, for instance, do we manage multiple different kinds of repositories? So right now we have apt backports enabled. We have the apt repository backports enabled, right? Well, how do I manage whether or not software comes from the backports repository? There's a few different ways of doing it, and I think actually already I have part of it in place here. So the first way to do it is to have a preferences file in here, which it looks like we don't have, so that's good because I'm going to show you how to make one later. The other way to do it, though, is apt mark. So let's take a look at apt mark. So apt mark is another package in the apt suite of applications, essentially. And what it does is it allows you to mark packages, most commonly, for holding them at a specific version. So, for instance, we can do apt mark hold vim. And now vim is set to on hold. If I want to see what packages are held, I can do apt tac mark show hold. And you'll see that it lists vim as a package that's held, essentially. Now if I want to do apt tac mark unhold, to unhold the package, I can do that, hold vim, okay, and then I can do the show hold, and it should not return anything because nothing is held. So that is a demonstration of held packages, or how to hold packages, right? So let's look at apt upgrade. So the biggest ones are, we have Linux, firmware Linux free is apparently available to be, no, that's a new package. So Linux image AMD 64 is available for upgrade. Let's see what happens if we attempt to install that package while it's being held. So let's do apt hold, or apt mark, sorry, hold Linux image, or it's not auto-completing. It doesn't look like it wants to. If I had the ZSH it would, but we're using bash here, so no autocomplete in all cases. So that should hold that package for me, okay? So now that's held, and we can verify that with our show hold. So you can see that it is held. Now if I do an upgrade, you'll notice that that package has been kept back. It will still show it as a package that can be upgraded. So if I do apt update, it should update the repositories, and I can do apt list upgradable, which it shows there that you can do. You can see that that package is in fact still available for upgrade. However, you'll notice that when I try to upgrade it, it says the package has been kept back, and it's because we have manually told it, no, we're going to hold that package. So, that is how you hold packages in Debian. Well, one of two ways. So, let's unhold that real quick. So, apt mark unhold, and then this package. which we don't need that. We could leave that there, I think, and it will be fine, but we'll cancel the hold on that, so now we could upgrade it if we wanted. And I'm going to go ahead and show you the other way to hold a package. This is called Apt Pinning. So in Etsy Apt, in here, you should have Vi and Preferences. Right, and you could also use the preferences.d directory if you wanted to, but I'm still old school with this. I just use the preferences file. And in here, you can do a man on preferences and look this up. I think it's apt tag preferences maybe. And here we can do packages star. So in this place we can actually list all the different packages we wanted to pin. But in this case we've done star, which is all packages. Okay, so that pins the package, all packages. We're going to pin it, and we're going to pin it at release A equals testing. So that would pin all packages to the testing distribution. Actually, we can do stable here, which will pin it to stable, which is probably better. In my notes I had testing, so you know. We can do pin priority. And we can do 900. Okay, now that is how you pin packages. What is the difference between this and apt mark? Apt mark is really good if you want to pin one package or hold one package at its current version. Okay, that's the best way to use that. This is good if you want to pin all the packages or a large number of packages to a specific version. So you can say I want to pin all packages to stable, but if some are above stable, that's okay, but we can pin them to stable, and then, you know, it will never upgrade past that point. Now, what about the case of a downgrade? The beauty of this is that this enables you to downgrade. There are other ways to downgrade too, but this is the most comprehensive. If you set your pin priority to 1001, then when you do an apt-get update and an apt-get dist upgrade, you will downgrade every package on your system to whatever you have pinned them to here. So if I wanted to downgrade back to stretch, this would do it. However, that can be jarring, and you should only do it if you really know what you're doing and you really, really want to for some reason. Otherwise, it is generally considered a bad idea to do this, especially if it's a very complete downgrade, like if you're downgrading everything from Debian, Buster to Stretch, which is Debian 10 to 9. That command would help you do it, but again, use with care, because it may break your system. So in the end, if you want to do that, you can do WQ, and now if I did an apt update, it's going to read that in and then apply it to my system, which unable to parse package file. Preferences. Did I misspell something? P-R-E-F-E-R-E-N-C-E-S. No, I didn't misspell it. Pin, P-R-I-O-R-I-T-Y. That's right. R-E-L-E-A-S-E. Oh, I see why. So the reason why is I do not need packages there. Just package. Now it should parse it well. And it didn't. I must have made another typo somewhere. And preferences. Oh, I did. Colon. Okay. Now that I'm done losing my mind here. Again, with the can't. Oops, sorry. Did not go up enough. Also colon. Oops. Okay, yeah, so now that's a clean run. Alright, so I missed a couple of colons and I pluralized something where I shouldn't have. Anyway, so this will show that one package can still be upgraded. Why? Because everything's still from stable, so we haven't really changed anything by setting this up. So it's really not important for us to have this actually here. So we can actually remove it just fine. I just wanted to show you what it was, how it worked, and that it works. So the next thing we're going to look at is Apt File. So do we have Apt File? If you don't have Apt File, you may need to install it. Apt install apt file, just like so. Mine's probably already there because I did another take on this video, so it's there already. Apt File is a way to search for where something is installed to on your system and what a package puts on your system and what files, what packages specific files come from. So, all right, there are two basic arguments that you want to give this, or flags or whatever, switches you want to give this. So the first is apt file is the command, and then the first switch is list, and this is to display a list of files a package is responsible for. So in this case, we're going to give it a package name. So let's say apt file list and then vim, and it will output a list of all of the packages on the system that come from the vim package, or all of the files that the vim package would deploy to a system. Okay, so that's kind of neat to know. The other thing is, if we do cd, we can look in here and we can find, I don't know, issue.net. Let's say we were curious which package was responsible for installing issue.net. For those of you who can't see it, it's this guy here. We're going to find out where that package, where that particular file comes from. What's responsible for putting it there? And this is why I like apt file. Apt file, and we're going to do search, and the pattern is going to be issue.net, issue.net, and then we can search for it, and we'll get a list of all of the different packages that install various issue.net stuff. You'll notice that the very first one here that's listed is base files, so that is the place that comes from. We could try a different one, and you can actually give it a full path too, so we could say etc and then newt. I wonder where that comes from. Well, let's do something a little different. Let's do sensors d, sensors.d, or let's do the conf file. There you go. Sensors3conf. What package installs sensors3.conf? Now the cool thing about this could tell you if, for instance, you had a configuration file that was busted and you needed to get the original back somehow, but you stupidly didn't make a backup of the original when you deleted it. Well, now you can figure out where that original file comes from. You could possibly download and extract it, or you could try reinstalling that package, but in this way you can be sure I am getting X file from Y package and know exactly where things are coming from. So apt file is kind of a cool little utility to have if you're troubleshooting stuff on your system. Generally, you probably shouldn't need it. I very rarely use it, but especially if you're doing something dumb like running a mixed system, that can be an interesting way to do it, because you have a lot of flux on mixed systems where a lot of different packages are being, installed all the time, and it can create some chaos, which is why you generally shouldn't do it. But if you're going to be brave and do it, then it might be in your best interest to understand what apt files is. So the other big one is actually, there's something I do kind of want to show you. This isn't actually on my notes, so I'm going a bit off script, but this is something interesting that I do want to show you in the case that you are going to run Debian Buster or any other testing or unstable distribution. It's an apt program. Install apt tag. Yes, so there is apt show versions, which is interesting, apt show source, which is interesting. But the one I really want to show you is apt list bugs. So what's cool about apt list bugs, you just install it, and then anytime you update your system, what will happen is during the update, if there are any critical bugs filed against the package, you can see them before you install the package. So when you try to do the installation, it will prompt you. It will say, hey, there's these bugs in the package. Are you sure you want to install this package? So when you're running a testing or unstable system, you can actually see before you mess up your system what's going to happen. And that's really, really, really cool. You can also do list changes and list differences, which do similar things, but for self-explanatory stuff. I'm not 100% sure about those. I don't tend to use them. List bugs I have used in the past when I was managing some unstable and testing systems for various reasons, because, you know, it's great. But that's kind of a really cool way to do things. There are also other things that you can do, like clone and cacher and such, and dater. They're mostly, I think, for developers, move and mirror and stuff. I'm pretty sure these are mostly for developers, but you can maybe install them and then do a man page on them and find out what they're all about, what's important for them. The only other one that generally you might need are these apt transports. So if you've ever had a URL, for instance, with an HTTPS in it, then you'll need the apt transport HTTPS in order to install it as a repository. And there are ones for Spacewalk and Tor and S3 if you need them. Generally you shouldn't, most people don't, but they're there if you do. So if you want to install packages from like that has a .onion address in it because you need to use Tor in order to install the package for some reason, you would use the apt transport Tor in order to do that. Whether or not I trust a package that came off of Tor is a different story entirely. Hopefully your GPG signing is good and you trust the author and that sort of thing, but you know, that's entirely up to you if you want to do that for whatever reason. But it is supported and you can do it. And that's the beauty of Debian, is generally your own skill set and how crazy you are is your limiter. That's it. You know, you can do whatever you want otherwise. There's not really anything there to limit you other than that. So that's cool. Alright, next thing we want to do is Dpkg. Dpkg it's basically the Debian equivalent of RPM in a sort of way, right? RPM is how you install basic RPM packages on Red Hat based systems, right? And Dpkg is how you install .deb files on Debian. Apt is essentially a wrapper for Dpkg. So it's basically what's responsible for finding and hunting down dependencies and giving you a lot of really cool functionality. But Dpkg itself is still relevant in some ways and does have some troubleshooting good aspects to it. So for instance, if you download a .deb file from somewhere and you want to install it, the basic command for that is dpkg -i and then the file. I could demonstrate that by doing apt download, I think. So if I do, let's go back to my home directory. So I'm in root. If I do apt download them, I get this, which, interestingly enough, I get this weird permission denied error. I'm not sure what that's really about. Unsandboxed as root. I guess it doesn't like that I'm doing this in sort of a very simple way. In the way I'm doing it, but that is one way of downloading a package. So anyway, this gives me my vim my thing, even though it said that, you know, permission was denied. If I do an ls tac al, you can see that it absolutely is there, and it's not like a zeroed out package. So we're good. Now if I wanted to install it, I could do apt remove vim. And now I can do dpkg -i, and I can install vim.deb, and it will be just as though I installed it normally. You can do that with other packages that you download from the internet if you want, and then you'll have it. Now if I do an apt tac, or actually if I just do an apt policy and then vim, you'll see that it still shows it as installed even though it was installed outside of the apt package manager. So Dpkg absolutely will update apt on its actions, which is fantastic, actually. I think maybe Dpkg may just be being read for what's installed by apt. I'm not sure how that actually works on an internal basis there, but one is apprised of what the other does in Debian. Like if you have aptitude, then it's gonna, you know, it's not gonna, like, you're not having two different repositories managing your system. You don't have to worry about conflicts and that sort of thing. So that's the gist of Dpkg. There are a couple more commands I can show you, like dpkg tac p is for purge. So if I wanted to purge the Vim package I just did, I would enter it like that and press enter, although I think I've beat Vim up enough as it is, so I'm not going to actually do it. Another really interesting command that you're going to want to use if you're going to want to install Steam or you know, maybe Wine or whatever, you're going to want to do dpkg tac add tac architecture, ARC, which if you tab complete it will tab complete. So add architecture, and then you want to do i386. i386 is basically the same thing as saying x86 in the Windows world, or 32-bit. So those are your 32-bit packages. If you do that, you won't get any output if there's no problems. If it completed successfully, that's what you'll get. If you had a problem, like if I just did, you know, let's do one I know won't work, i0. Actually, that won't do anything either. I'm actually not sure if i0 is a thing, so hopefully it's not. But yeah, i386 is what you want for that. And then if you wanted to remove an architecture, I believe it's remove, maybe? Remove architecture. And then here, let's just do the i0 one, just in case it was a thing. Okay, so that will add and remove architectures. And actually, this is a virtual machine, so I don't need 386 really enabled on this. But that is how you add and remove various architectures. And of course, once you add it, you'd want to do an update in order to refresh your packages. And then you'll see that all of a sudden Steam becomes available if you have your non-free repositories enabled, which don't know that I actually showed you guys how to do that. So at the end of the video, I'll show you guys how to enable non-free and contrib repositories. But actually, I'll show you that in just like a minute here. But first, I want to show you two more commands while we're on Dpkg, because I don't want to bounce back and forth. So if you want to force remove a package, like if you're doing a downgrade, this is one thing you can try. I'm just going to paste this command in so you can see it. Sudo dpkg tac remove tac force remove reinstall rec package. What that's going to do is it's going to forcibly remove a package. If you try that on a package that's not broken, it may look like that command will not work. But if you have a package that does say it's broken or is giving you problems removing it, you can try that command and it should work. Package, by the way, you're going to replace that with your package name. So in this case, I would do Vim, for instance. But if I actually enter this command, it's going to give me an issue. It's going to talk about how whatever, it's basically not going to do it right. It won't look like it would if that package was broken, basically. So that's one way to do it. Another thing you can do to troubleshoot post-installation script errors. So I ran into this with the MB package back when they did that upgrade thing, where basically they had, it was telling me that the package was basically stuck on the system and refused to move or be removed. So this is a command you can use to actually fix that, or at least troubleshoot that. So in this case, this is sort of like a dpkg configure tac-d. It's sort of like a debug, and this is an octal number. And basically that will show you if there are any problems with that package post installation script or post removal script or whatever. If there are any problems, it'll give you an idea of where they are, and you can use that to troubleshoot problems. This is specifically important if you're doing mixed systems or something crazy, or installing some non-stable package. If you're just sticking to the stable repositories, these commands should never be an issue for you to ever worry about. But those are things you can try out. The *C at the end obviously is where I'm pressing Control-C, so you could ignore that. That's not part of the actual command. Okay, so how do we enable the non-free and free repositories? I showed you that in the prior video, so I didn't think about it in this one, but I realized that I only showed that to you from a GUI perspective. Let's see if we can do it from a command line perspective. So if we just do apt edit sources, you'll notice that I have these lines appended here, main contrib non-free. In Vim. So if you're in Nano, you just want to manually add those. But if you're in Vim, there's actually a cool way to add those command or those lines. So you can do colon and then %s, and then you can do $, and then it's caret. Sorry, or not caret. No, you don't want to do that. Main, and then I don't know, maybe a $, and then a $, and then this, and then you can do contrib main contrib and then non-tac free. And then slash and then G. So let's break that down. This is a vim command, so it's a little outside of the scope of the video, but I'm going to do it anyway. So the %s basically says affect the whole file. Main, actually this G at the end is probably unnecessary, but I stick it there anyway. Main, so that's going to match this. So the first slash is what you're matching. So this is going to match the word main. So you need to be careful that there's not a main like up here somewhere. Main, and then it's going to, the dot star says match any character, and then match any other character that repeats. So it's going to match, basically, it's like saying dots into infinity. So basically match any character into infinity until the end of the line. So main is going to match and then anything after it. So in some of these lines, you'll notice that contrib is there by default, and you don't want to have contrib appear twice. So we matched it. And then main, contrib, and non-free will be what is replaced. So basically, if I hit enter, it's not going to look like anything happened, essentially. Well, I guess it did up here up at the top. Probably because main was in there, like, extra. Not actually sure what happened at the top. I wasn't paying attention to the stuff that's commented out up there. But if you do have a problem, or if you find that your command broke something, you just press U, and it'll undo it. Should, anyway. Yes. Okay. Yeah, so what happened is main is up here after contrib for some reason in the CD-ROMs, but if you're commenting out the CD-ROMs, who cares? Unless you want to re-enable them in the future for some reason. But anyway, so that's an easy way to do it if you think that method is easy. Otherwise, just add them one line at a time, however you want to work it. And then save the file and quit. And then you have your non-free and contrib repositories enabled. Okay, so we're coming to the end of this video. There's a few more things I want to show you guys. The next bit I want to show you is apt proxying. So if you set up a proxy or an apt cache server on your network, which is actually the act of setting up an apt cache server is outside of the scope of this video. That would just take way too long. It's going to turn this probably hour-long video by now into like a 3-hour-long video. So I'm just going to show you how to connect to one if you have one available on your network or you're interested in setting one up. So if you did it during the installation process, it's already done for you. But what you need to do is cd to etc and then apt. And in here you'll see this, actually it may not even be there by default. No, it doesn't look like it is. So what you're going to do is you're going to do vi and then apt.conf. You could put it probably in apt-conf-d, but I'll just do it in apt-conf. And in here you're going to have this blank file. So what we're going to do is we're going to add some text in this file that will allow us to connect to a particular proxy. My version of this is not going to work because I don't have a real proxy on this little subnetwork to connect to, but I'm going to show you how to do it essentially. So what you're going to do is you're going to type the word acquire, A-C-Q-U-I-R-E. You're going to do : and you'll notice that if you're in Vim, it should color code it for you. And then you're going to do HTTP : and then you're going to do proxy with a capital X, mind the casing. I think it's important. I'm not 100% on that because I never tested it, but I'm pretty sure it's important. You're going to quote this, and this is where you're going to put the URL for your proxy. So in this case, I'm just going to use HTTP : cache.example.com. That seems to make the most sense. We're going to give it a colon, and the normal port for this is, I believe, 3142, if I'm not mistaken. For most cachers. And then you're going to end that with a semicolon. And if everything has gone well, it should look much like this. Now if you close this file and you do an apt update, it will search through the proxy. The advantage to doing this is if you have a lot of Debian systems on your network and you have the one proxy system out there that they're all talking to, what will end up happening is that once one system goes to the proxy and then does the updates through the proxy will cache those packages on its system. And then any other system that needs to go out and install or update packages from the proxy, it will just get the packages from that cache instead of going all the way back out to the internet or the mirrors. This saves resources for Debian because you're not hounding their mirrors all the time, and it saves resources for you because you're not having to reach out to the internet every time you want to install a package. It will only reach out in the case of a new package or an updated version of a package. So basically the cacher will stay in sync with whatever the internet is talking about. which is really cool. Now, there are some downsides to this. The first is if you're on a laptop and you leave your home network or whatever network has the cacher, you're not going to be able to push updates. So you're going to want to work around that somehow. The easiest thing to do is to just not do this on laptops, or to do it the first time during installation and then comment it out afterwards in order to, make it not do it on a laptop that you're taking elsewhere. The other thing you could do is make your apt cache globally accessible so that you can get to it from the outside world. That works too, although I don't know that it makes it any faster in that case for your laptop user. But at the very least, it would redirect the traffic from the Debian servers to your proxy instead, which is kind of nice to Debian, I suppose. But I just tend to generally leave it disabled on laptops, except during the initial installation. So I'm the kind of person who will come in here and comment it out because I find it less of a hassle that way, and I like to keep my proxy in-house. There is one other big downside to this, though, and that downside is third-party repositories are sometimes very, very bad. They don't tend to play nice with this. So in that case, I'm going to show you how to make an exception. So what you're going to do is you're going to do acquire http proxy, just like before, proxy. Now we're going to do something a little different, where we're going to do a bracket and maybe do and then enter down, and we're going to do www.bypassme.com, which is a website I just made up, so please don't go to it. I'm not sure if it's a thing or not, and maybe it's dangerous if it is. I don't know. And then you're going to do direct, direct, right, semicolon. And then we're just going to close off our little brackets there, or braces. And so that will allow that particular URL to be directly accessible bypassing the proxy, essentially, which is important for URLs that act up when they're on a proxy. So one thing that you may see, an error or something that you may see if your URL is acting up on a proxy is, one, it just won't work. Two, you may see GPG errors even though you put the key in, or it can look really weird. So in the event that you have a proxy and you are caching and you have issues with URLs, specific third-party repositories, and you keep going to the repository and going, hey man, your stuff's messed up, and they keep going, no, it's absolutely not, this is something you can check because it's probably this. Anyway, I'm going to just quit that, and actually I'm going to quit without saving because I don't want that actually being in there. Dang it. Why is it's being a pain about capitalizing here. Let's do everything capital. So this is the downside to a VM. Let's see if I can get it to behave. There we go. Okay. Just had to give it focus and turn it back on, turn it back off, sort of thing. Okay, so there is officially one more trick that I want to show you guys before I wrap this video up. And hopefully this video has been very, very in-depth for you guys and taught you a lot, because I tried to put basically as much as I know about apt in this. I'm pretty sure I'm leaving some stuff out. I'm positive I am, but hopefully I've gotten the vast majority of it. So this last little trick is a very interesting little tidbit that you can use if you want to make sure two Debian systems have the same packages. So the easiest way to do that, obviously, is to use something like Ansible to make sure they're on the same page, or just use a virtual machine cloning technique or something. That would work. But in the event that you want to be old school and you want to make sure two systems have essentially the same setup, you can do it this way. So first thing you want to do is you want to do Dpkg, tac, and then get tac selections. What this is going to do is it's going to list all the software that is currently installed on your system. Now we're going to output that. You need to be careful with output commands, because if you do it wrong, you can overwrite stuff, but we're going to do it. And we're just going to call it install log, and we're going to save it to home, right? Just do install.log, right? Like that. Okay. That's to home. Now, in this case, it's going to be my root home directory because I'm root right now. But that's going to output my selections to there. So if I do vi and I need to use the tilde because I'm not in home directory right now. I'm actually physically in etc apt, so that's why I'm using the tilde there. You can see that it's listed out a bunch of packages and it has the word install next to each of them. That is the selected packages on my system and their status, essentially. Now, what I can do is we need to transfer this to the destination machine. Okay, now you can do that many different ways. The easiest way would be SCP. So if you have the ability to SSH into the destination system, you would do something like SCP, and then the file you want to transfer, so install.log, and then the server you want to transfer it to, so server, hostname, whatever, and then colon for to separate the server name from the directory path, and then the directory you want to put it in. In this case, that would be home, right? So that would move install.log to server home. Now it's going to install it to root's home because that's who I am right now. So if I want to put, you know, like Joe, for instance, in this case, and then at here, it would install it to a fictional server called server in Joe's home directory because that's the user I am when I connect to it, which is what Joe at does. Now it's going to prompt you for your password, or if you've got SSH key set up, it might prompt you for your SSH key password if that's protected by password, or it may not prompt you at all if you have an unprotected SSH key and are crazy. So that would be one method of transferring it. You could, of course, also burn it to a CD. You could put it on a USB thumb drive, save it to a network share, and download it again. Whatever method of exference you want to use, your transfer should, you should transfer that file over. Once you get your file on your remote system, you're going to install the remote on the remote system. On the remote system, this is hypothetically, I'm not switching systems here, but on the remote system, you're going to do apt install and then deselect, D-S-E-L-E-C-T, like so. And then that actually is already there for me, so I don't have to worry about it. But in your case, if you have a new system, it may not be. And then you're going to do Dpkg tac set tac selections, and then you're going to do the caret in reverse, and you're going to point it at your install log file, like that. And then you're going to press enter. And what that's going to do, sorry, this is actually a broken command, hang on. There, tac set selections like so, and then you're going to point it at the install log, like so. Okay, what that's going to do is it's going to import all the install log file, all the contents of install log into that command. Essentially, it's going to say, Dpkg, I want you to set your selections to the selections in this install log. That's what you're saying with that command. That's not actually going to push the installation, though. This is where you need deselect. In this case, you're going to do apt, and I'm not sure if this works with apt-get or apt. I've never tried it with apt alone, but you can try it. Apt deselect LECT tag upgrade. I'm actually going to test it. Why not? Be brave. Okay, yeah, no, it doesn't work with apt. So you probably need to use apt-get here. Which, yes, it absolutely works. Okay, so once you run the deselect upgrade, it's going to upgrade to all the packages that are in that file you outputted. And that will allow you to effectively clone your system. So that basically wraps up the video. And I hope you guys enjoyed my apt and package tutorial in Debian on the advanced side of things. Hopefully I can get to the next video soon, hopefully much faster than this one got done, and hopefully this one comes out well. And I'll see you guys in the next video. Thank you for watching. So here's a little bit of bonus content that I kind of forgot to talk about earlier in the video. There were a couple of commands I really just wanted to show off and just completely escaped me to do it, and I should have. So we're gonna talk about those a little bit because it's important, I think. So the first thing I want to talk about is apt show. So this is one we missed. Apt show them. What that does is it gives you a description of the particular package that you want to look at. So it tells you, the version, priority, and most importantly, what it depends on, or what depends on it. I think what it depends on, actually. Them common, them runtime. So these are the dependencies that it uses. And it also gives you things about like its home page and where it comes from, which repository, and a description, which is the most important bit, a description of what that package is. So if you want to investigate what a package is, this is kind of like how you do package discovery without like the front end. So it is important to understand that command. It's one I use pretty often, and I kind of just blanked out on it and did not do that. The other important one that I could see doing is how do you tell it to install a specific version from a specific repository. So let's go ahead and do sudo, or not sudo, I'm sorry, just apt edit sources. Actually, sorry, we'll do backports.list. Yes, so that's enabled. All right. So if I wanted to install something specifically from the backports repository, I would do apt tact stretch tac backports, because that's the backports repository. So if you install other repositories, you'll see them in there. You should be able to tab complete them. So like if I do that, you can see that I had stretch updates and stretch backports. So I can do stretch backports, and then I can just tell it install, and then the package name. So them. So if there were a stretch backports version of them, it would totally install it at this point. The other thing I could do if I wanted to install it, this will install that package and resolve all dependencies. If I just wanted to install the one package and not install anything else from backports, I could do like this. Right? And that will install that specific version of or that whatever package is available in that repository. The last thing is, what if I wanted to install a specific version of a package from either a repository or something, right? I had a specific version of that package in the repositories that I wanted to install. So let's take a look at maybe apt policy Linux firmware. Firmware Linux, maybe. Firmware Linux. Right? Oh, man, Linux, right? Okay. And then free, maybe? Yeah. So, okay. That does not have. So let's check out non-free then. Nope. Atheros? Okay, let's try the sudo. Let's see, apt update. Let's make sure we have the current repository list, shall we? No? Could have sworn these guys had a backported version available, but I guess not. Okay, so let's do this then. Apt policy Linux image. Yeah, so 4.17 is in there. .bpo, AMD. So 1, 3, 2, 3. AMD 64. Okay. Yeah. So this one's from our repository, our backports repository. You can see that here. Unfortunately, I'm having a hard time finding a pack. Oh, you know what might be there? LibreOffice. Let's try LibreOffice. LibreOffice is always there. There we go. Now we got one. Okay. So here you can see that this is listed in a couple of places, and you can also see that both of these are listed at 500. That's your priority. So in this case, it's going to install the newest version of the software. So if I tell it to install LibreOffice, it's going to try to install, it's going to install the newest version. So Backports actually has a really low priority of 100 right now. But you can see that the newer version is the 6.1. So you can totally get that version of the software right now if I wanted the newest version of LibreOffice. I'm not actually going to install it because that is a big installation, but I will show you how to specifically say I want this version of the software or I want that version of the software. So it's actually exactly what you think. You just double click it and you'll get that highlight. You can also right click and do copy in order to put it on your regular clipboard. And then you're going to do apt install, and the package name, which is LibreOffice, and then equals, and then you're going to paste that. And then if you hit enter, helps if I don't type like an idiot. There we go. I'm sorry, you may need the whole string, including the 1. Like so. Yes, so it's going to hang up here because I specifically told it to install that version, but I didn't give it any of the dependencies that it's going to install, and it can't resolve them. If I did a tac-t, so for instance, if I did like this, if I added a tac-t stretch backports, and then press enter, it's going to offer the installation to me. So the reason that's important is in the event that you had a specific package where you know you needed a specific version number, but you couldn't for some reason get it to install that version number, like no matter what, that's a way where you can specifically say that. That's also a way where you can downgrade a package without actually pinning the downgrades to 101 or 1001. I believe it will still allow you to downgrade a package that way if you ask for a specific version that way. But again, if you do that, it may you may run into dependency issues. So you may have to do that for like a lot of packages, depending on the size of your downgrade. So if you're downgrading a lot of stuff or something that has a ton of dependencies, you may want to set up the pinning. If you're downgrading 1 or 2 packages that don't have a lot of dependencies, you know, maybe in total you're only downgrading like 2 or 3 packages, you may want to just use this method instead of actually going in and pinning stuff. It just depends on how precise you want to be. But anyway, those are some extra tidbits I threw in some bonus content at the end of the video because I felt like it needed to be said, and for the sake of completeness, it just needed to be done. So I hope you enjoyed the bonus content.